Hey guys, Coach Alex here from FastFitnessTips. Today I'm going to talk to you about superbikes and in particular hyperbikes. What is a hyperbike, I hear you ask? Well, we're defining a hyperbike as one that literally ticks all the boxes of bike design. You know, we've had fantastic super light bikes, we've had, aero bikes, we've had fully integrated bikes, but we're talking here about the combination. A bike that ticks every box, an aero frame, a lightweight frame, fully integrated cables, so integrated in fact that you can't even see the cable runs apart from the most minuscule bit of cable maybe at the back on the rear derailleur. But basically they've managed to integrate, fully hide and conceal those cables, which is a fantastic innovation, not just for aerodynamics but to make the bike look neat. These bikes look absolutely awesome. Who would disagree with that? So to help us out here, here's a quick demo of the Hyperbike and Superbike app on CyclingApps, which I've downloaded and is free for anyone to download via their gateway app called Open as App. You can see from this database that they've got a massive amount of data behind the scenes. This is like a database app, but we can filter it by various parameters. For example, we can filter it by price, by value, by weight, or what we want today is to filter it by superbikes and hyperbikes, right? So the hyperbike ticks every box, and we've had since 2nd of July, during basically the Tour de France season, we've had the announcement of the specialized Venge replacing the VIS or VIAS. We've had the announcement of Cannondale SystemSix. We've had the BMC time machine, and then we've also had Trek Madone SLR9 and the whole range actually. And it's a little bit hard to get hold of the details, but the Wilier Cento10 Air, which we have seen in the Tour in the early stages. So these bikes are predominantly disc brake. In fact, the first three are coming out only as disc brake. Only the Trek and the Wilier are coming out as rim and disc brake combined to give you that choice. So there is a massive trend for disc brake. You already know that. So there's a massive trend for disc brake, but increasingly it means you'll only be able to buy disc brake bike if you want a particularly high-end bike. Now actually, casting your mind back, I think the bike that set off this trend for full integration was actually BMC. BMC came out with the Road Machine 01 fully integrated design in around about 2017, so over a year ago now. I loved this bike when it first came out. Not just the color, not just the weight, the full integration I'm talking about, the way they managed to hide the cables away. Yeah, sure, it's aided by electronic shifting, and that's another thing. Nearly all these bikes, in fact all but one I think, are electronic shifting only. So electronic shifting has enabled now bike manufacturers to hide away the cable runs more than they're ever able to do. And they're also hiding any junction boxes and batteries as well, which I think is an advantage. Now, are they able to do this and keep the weight down? That's the question for today. And in fact, if you want everything, if you want to have your cake and eat it, are they able to do this, tick every box of bike design and keep the weight down and keep the price down? Well, look, you and I know we're going to be disappointed on that. Bikes don't come out to market initially at a really low price point, but prices do tend to trend down with time. And further, within this bike release, cohort, bike prices do vary. So yes, you've got some bikes which are ludicrously overpriced, let's say over $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 or euros. But you've got some that are actually quite reasonable, probably around half that price. So let's have a little look at that. So following on from the Road Machine 01, which I'm going to put in the hyperbike category, although some will say it's not fully aero, i.e. the frame design is not super aero. The next one to come out, just at the end of last year really, was Simplon. The Australian manufacturer brought out Simplon Pride Disc, which I really liked. It's got a number of really nice design features. Now, one of those features is a split handlebar, but they've also got full integration of the cable runs. It's pretty light as it happens. I mean, it weighs around 7 kilos in the E-Tap version. Now, one thing that isn't so good perhaps about this bike is you don't necessarily get those awesome DT Swiss deep dish wheel set included. I think at the cheaper price point, it comes with the DT Swiss P 1/800 spline version. However, you can upgrade it. But what I have noticed is already this bike is coming into some stores discounted for as little as £5,000 in the UK, or around 6,000 to 7,000 euros or dollars. So the Simplon Pride is one of the standout good value bikes in this cohort. So let's move on to the bike used by Borahans Grohe, Peter Sagan, and also I think Quickstep Floors. That is the Specialized S-Works Venge disc. So for 2019, they are radically overhauling this bike. Nearly everything has been redesigned. The massive headline here is the weight. They've taken the weight down by at least 500 grams, but if you look at the previous weight specs in the high-end Vias version, it was actually 7.8 kilograms last year, and it's down to 7.1 kilograms at around about the same price point, around about £10,000 or $13,000. Now sure, this is one of the most expensive bikes in this cohort, so I'm not telling you this is cheap. I'm not telling you it's worth it. I'm just telling you that the cutting edge, this is where it's at right now. This is also going to come with specialized dual-sided power cranks, I think as standard, and an awesome wheel set, the Roval CLX 64mm wheel set, which has been wind tunnel tested. It's also one of the few bikes that, as stock, takes 32mm tires, so it's doing pretty well here. Now let's talk about Trek, and obviously Trek Segafredo. John Degenkolb is riding the Trek Madone SLR9, the high-end 9 version. Now that's coming in around the same price as the previous bike, around £10,000, 13,000 euros, $13,000. The weight in the disc brake version is pretty good, not quite as good as the Venge, but it's 7.4 kilos or 16.5 pounds. The disc brake wheels are the in-house Bontrager Aeolus XXX 6, meaning that they are 6 centimeter or 60mm deep. And this bike has a headline which is not necessarily its weight, but its comfort, because it's coming with this ISO speed adapter, which allows you to tune the resonance or compliance in the frame. So you actually have a nice range of adjustability depending on your road surface. Now officially this is fitting 28mm tires, but I've been told you can fit 32mm, and I've been told they've solved the headache of integration and working on this bike mechanically, i.e. they've actually got two-piece aero bars which can detach and allow you to reroute the cables without stripping the bike back to raw basics. Okay, let's have a look at BMC, because if BMC racing team don't fold, they have the potential to race on the new Time Machine 01. I haven't actually seen this, but I've seen the photos, I've read the reviews, and I'm impressed with what they're bringing to market here. The Time Machine 01 is 7.5 kilos. The standard price for the high-end model is 12,000 euros or dollars. And it's coming with the DT Swiss ARC 1100 or 1100 62mm carbon tubeless ready tires, which officially fit 28mm tires. Now they're making a lot of the aero design with their elite integration with the elite water bottles. Personally, I've got mixed feelings on whether this is the way to go, because not everybody rides every ride with water bottles. And I'm not sure that riding with the water bottles is as aerodynamic as a rule as riding without, even though in this bike they're definitely saying in this instance their wind tunnel tests say it is as aerodynamic as riding without. So they're claiming it is, but I'm not sure it's a good idea to force all buyers to have this. Next on my list, as used by Lotto Soudal, Andre Greipel et al., would be the Ridley Noah Fast, the Ridley Noah Fast, and this actually is one of the bikes that comes in disc and non-disc version. So this bike actually is very expensive, but compared to the others, it's beginning to look good value. In fact, the recommended retail price for the entire bike is around 8,000 euros or 4,500 for the frame set, and the standard build, I think, is Dura Ace for that, but there is an Ultegra Di2 version as well. Now the disc brake version comes in at 7.4 kilos, non-disc very lightweight, 6.8 kilos, and the standard build is 45mm carbon Forza R45 deep dish carbon wheels with the disc brakes. Now they're also offering this bike with the new compact disc brake version, which I have seen up close and personal, and that is probably the best disc brake group set on the market right now, the very latest 2018 compact no-load disc group set. And I've almost forgotten Wilier. I don't know if you saw stage 2 or 3 with Silver and Chavanel's brake. He did a massive brake, and on that brake he was riding the Wilier Cento10 Air, which is brand new. Now the problem with this bike is details are extremely sketchy. I've read that it might be around 7.6 kilos, so it's a little bit heavier. The price might be around £7,000 or $10,000, which is definitely expensive. But again, perhaps it's mid-range in terms of these Hyperbike. You can of course buy the frame and fork for $5,000, which of course is no steal by any means. But this looks an awesome bike, and in terms of the paintwork and finish, probably for me anyway, this one is the best of all. I mean, it's an absolutely outstanding paintwork. Oh yeah, and I also want to give out a shout out to Giant, because after BMC launched the Road Machine, set off this trend for full integration, Giant were one of the first to also do this successfully. Earlier this year actually, they launched the Propel, the revised Propel, in 4 models, SL0, SL, Pro and Disc, and we have pretty much all the stats on this now because this bike has been out longer, so people have had the chance to test ride it and also to weigh it. And we know that the SL0 is coming in at 7.3 kilos, which is pretty good. The SL Disc regular is coming in at 7.6. The Pro Disc is coming in at 8, and the regular Advanced Disc, which is the base model, is coming in at 8.7, which, by the way, before you dismiss it, is still pretty good. It's fully integrated, and the price point is only about $5,000 or slightly under that, £3,000 in the UK. Not too bad. The high-end model is still around £9,000 or somewhere around 11,500 euros or dollars. Now you probably noticed I haven't talked about one big headline, and that is probably saving the best till last in some ways. The Cannondale 2019 SystemSix. Now it's not just one model, it's several models as you'll see here, and they get less and less integrated, less and less up to date as you go down the price point. So at the high end of the range you've got the SystemSix High Mod Dura-Ace Di2 with the in-house 64mm knot wheels, also redesigned integrated aero bars and stem, at least on the 2 higher spec models, the Dura-Ace and the Ultegra. The Dura-Ace version is extremely high in price, but the Ultegra is almost looking reasonable, $7,500. Now what I love about Cannondale in this case is they've really gone to town with the wind tunnel tests, and they're the only manufacturer to bring out comparative data with their raw CDA of bike without rider in the wind tunnel. They've made some effort to equalize this by putting on, decent wheels. So where they compared it to classic road bike, they did put on aero wheels in that wind tunnel. And you can read all about it in their white paper, which is actually really nicely done. Which brings me to the topic of aero claims. You see, there was not much point spending this much money on a bike. And if you were to spend this much money, you do want to know which one's best, right? You want to know what they show. Now, of course, every manufacturer hasn't compared themselves to every other manufacturer. And in addition, manufacturers' own data should be taken with a pinch of salt. But it's still worth looking at the headline. So Cannondale are saying, for example, at 18 miles an hour, the new SystemSix will save you around 17 watts versus the old Super 6 design. Now if you work it out, CyclingApps has an app for this. I don't think it's released yet, but basically it's a CDA solver based on power, based on speed, based on wind conditions, based on the environment, etc. It'll tell you the predicted CDA. If you work it out, what their data suggests, the Cannondale data white paper, is it's taking CDA down from a regular bike to low time trial bike territories. These fully integrated aero hyperbikes are definitely in the TT bike bracket. So also BMC have wind tested their time machine, and they're claiming roughly 11.5 watt saving at 45 km an hour and more at higher yaw angles, which if you work it out with the CyclingApps solver takes the CDA from around 0.237, that's bike and rider, to around about 0.228. Okay guys, let's wrap up. What I'm saying is, just in the last week, we've seen a large number of manufacturers bring some absolutely awesome bikes to market. Yeah, the price range is ridiculous and not everyone can afford these. In fact, I'm curious who can afford these at all. Are they just showpieces to show the very latest design? Are they just for pro riders on the world tour? No, they are released in regular stores. You know, so people are buying these, albeit not in large volume. But the key headline is this technology is going to trickle down to your everyday bike eventually. These are bikes that are currently ticking every box, not just electronic shifting, but disc, not just lightweight, but fully integrated. So fully integrated electronic shifting, disc brake, lightweight, super and hyper bikes at rather expensive, probably ludicrously expensive price, but showing what the manufacturers can do. This is where bike technology is at its cutting edge right now. This is the best manufacturers can do right now, and we're all going to benefit from this, either now if you're a millionaire and you don't mind spending a large amount right now on one of these bikes, or all of us in the future when this technology trickles down. Okay, this is Coach Alex signing off. Until next time, have a great ride guys.